Hey there, everyone. Welcome into the Ben Maynard Program. Thanks for being here. Before we get started, a little bit of housekeeping to take care of. As a reminder, this program is available on multiple podcast platforms like Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Spotify. Or you can search the Ben Maynard Program, and you'll have many options to choose from. I want to steer everyone towards Buzzsprout because that's where my website is. And if you can't resist this, and I know many of you can't, and you're watching on YouTube, then ask that you please subscribe to the channel, give me a thumbs up, and leave a comment. I love comments. And last but not least, follow me on Instagram, simply Ben Maynard Program. So plenty of ways to take in this show for your dancing and listening pleasure. And with that, I'll recap the last episode real quick. That was with my buddy Spaz, and it was our Foreigner extravaganza, and we talked about Foreigner the entire show because we're huge fans, and of course Foreigner has been nominated for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and we want to celebrate that, and we're pulling for him, and so we shared our experiences and our love for the band. And if you haven't seen it, check it out because it's good stuff. It's always good stuff. And I didn't bring my iPad in here. Oh, let me see if I can do this real quick because I always say if you leave a comment, I'm going to read it. And I got a few comments on last week's show, and there was one guy on here who was a little perturbed. So I want to read it because he was rightfully so. And let's get into it. Boom, there it is. There's that one. Boom. And let's get to the comments. Oh, okay. And there was a couple on here. Of course, every time Spaz comes on the program, he has to comment. But Hard Rockology Show said, what? No mention of Spies or Shadow King? And those were bands that, at least Shadow King. I'm familiar with Spies, but I don't remember which member of Foreigner was in it. I think it was a Lou Gramm band, but I can't recall. But Shadow King was a band that Lou Gramm had in the early 90s with Vivian Campbell, Bruce Turgon, and I don't even remember who was on drums. But I told Hard Rockology, I said I was wanting to mention Shadow King because that one and only album they had was really good, and I just forgot to fit it in. So he was like, he liked it. He gave me a thumbs up on it, so he forgave me. But the cool one was from Todd 3 MSN, and he says, and he was right. He says, if you are having a show on Foreigner, how about knowing what you're talking about? Because in your hands is the Foreigner CD booklet, and if you look inside, you will see Al Greenwood pictured in the sleeve. He played on Head Games, which you have in your hand. Ed Gagliardi was the bass player for the first two records of Foreigner, and he was fired because that's what Mick wanted, and he was the boss. Al Greenwood and Ian McDonald left Foreigner or were booted out after Head Games. And Todd MSN was right. And, you know, he was right, and I appreciate that. And I just, thanks for the correction. It was purely a misspeak on my part. And, I'm just happy that he is a big Foreigner fan like Spaz and I and many of you out there. So he was able to recognize my mistake, and he called me out on it. And look, I'll be honest, Todd, what was that? Todd 3 MSN. Look, you're right. I had the booklet in my hand. But sometimes you don't want to have to just continue to thumb through things. So you speak off the top of your head. Sometimes I misspeak. I've done it before. I remember one episode I did way back early on. I called Dennis Elliott, the drummer of Foreigner, I called him Dennis Wright. But that was way back when nobody was watching this show or listening to it. So I got away with it. So it was misspeak. And then there have actually been times where I always mix up the names and get them confused between Ed Gagliardi, Al Greenwood, and Ian McDonald. So I just messed up, but thanks for calling me on that one. I appreciate it. All right, so there you go. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce this beautiful young lady sitting in the chair next to me. This is my daughter, Tess. And Tess, I just want to say thanks for coming in and agreeing to do this. And then I'll go ahead and bring the audience up to speed.
Okay, yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you for introducing me. I didn't know whether to jump in on any of those parts.
You could have, but it's like foreigners really not like in your wheelhouse. So
I know head games, Ben.
Ooh.
David and I we went to Summerfest in Brea this past year, and it was that foreigner tribute band.
Oh.
And they were actually pretty good.
Yeah. What was the name of that band?
I couldn't tell you. I don't remember.
Come on.
But they were good.
Well, in all transparency, people, I almost had to twist Tessa's arm to get her to do this. We had a family birthday party today, and earlier in the week, I called Tess and I said, "Hey, come in and do the show with me, all right? I want you to come on the show." And I've been wanting her to come on the show for a while. I want to introduce my family to you out there, the audience, and kind of give you a little bit of a peek behind the curtain and see all the people that are either in my corner or against me. See the people who don't watch this show, who don't listen to it, but just kind of get to know more about me. And so I did. I asked Tess, hey, come in and do the program. She's like, all right. And so we had a birthday party today, mine and Catherine's granddaughter and Tess's niece. And so it's a prime opportunity to come in studio afterwards and kind of bang one of these shows out, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah. So Tess, and I did introduce her as my daughter. And for all intents and purposes, she is my daughter because her mother and I are married. Now, yes, legally that makes her my stepdaughter. I guess biologically it does too. But I never look at it that way, and I never have. And so, because it doesn't need explanation, and it's, I don't know. I guess I kind of have an aversion to that first part of that term, step. Look, we're family, and that's it. And I don't consider Tess anything other than my daughter. So that's how I refer to her. She always will be. And that's the way it is. So thanks for doing this, Tess. And let's get started with this. So let's go back 6 years ago, because it's actually been almost 6 years to the day, right?
Yeah, April.
That's right. And your mother and I had just started dating, and I remember our first date.
I want to tell this one.
Oh, go ahead. No, you tell it.
I don't know if you've already talked about it, because I know Mom was on the show. But at least from my perspective, their first date, I remember it was my junior prom night. And my mom told me that she had a date going on. She showed me a picture, told me your name. I didn't even have a last name. I didn't even know your name was like Benjamin. She just said like Ben. Like, yeah, I'm going out with a guy named Ben. We're going to El Torito Grill. It's like our favorite restaurant. So I'm like, oh, you're going to El Torito. Okay.
Fancy.
But yeah, so I went to my prom, and it was out in Hollywood, and we had a volleyball tournament the next day. And I remember my friend's dad drove us all home because, Mom wasn't driving me. And I remember I got home maybe around midnight. I wasn't doing anything crazy after the prom because it's like, okay, we have a big day tomorrow. So I get home and I saw her car was there, but I was like, I got in, she's not home. And I was like, where is she? So then I don't remember what I did, if I called her or texted her or anything like that. But then, it started getting later. I have to wake up early in the morning. So now I'm getting a little concerned because I'm like, why isn't she home? And for me, I'm like, this is my prom night. Why is she still on her date? Like, why am I home before her? At least that's what I was thinking. And then she made it home fine. And then, everything was good. But I don't know. That was just what I remember from your first date. So I was thinking, well, it must have gone well.
But did she tell you that she was going to take an Uber?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. That's why her car was in the driveway.
Yeah. So her plan was like, she was going to take an Uber. And if she ended up liking him enough, then she would allow him to drive her home, which was what ended up happening, if I'm not mistaken.
That's exactly what happened. Because what can I say? There's a lot here, Yeah. And I remember, and you're right. I think that date went on till almost 2 a.m. So you were home for quite a while before your mother. And but I recall we were sitting out in front of the house, and she either texted you or you texted her first, and she said, "I'm at home and we're in front of the house." And we're okay.
She did say that.
Yeah, and then you felt a little more comfortable about that. But how? I mean, you were 16 years old at the time, and your mother, obviously single mom, not single for a long period of time, a couple years. And kind of how did you feel about her kind of dipping her toe in the water and getting back into the dating world?
I mean, honestly, I wanted her to.
Yeah.
It was interesting because I remember, at least at the time that my parents split up, it was like my freshman year in high school. So when you guys started going out,
yeah,
I'm a junior now. So yeah, about 2 years had gone by. But I remember for that time, at least my freshman year, when that had happened, she made the decision shortly after to leave the job she had, that, she had the same career going for my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very busy for her. She was working weekends. She was working nights. She was always at work. So I remember when it was going to be just me and her, then she made that decision to leave, to just be with me and focus on me and be there for me all the time. So I saw what she was doing with that. And, I was getting older at that point in time too. It's like I'm getting to a point where, I want to like start going on dates and I want to do that. And then I think from the perspective of mom, like, oh my gosh, like, of course she like wants to do that as well. Probably. I know that I'm her priority, but I don't want her to feel like she's being held back in any way.
Right.
So I was like happy when she would say that she had a date lined up, because I'm thinking, like, maybe this is going to be like, yeah, like someone that she really hits it off with.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really know like everything. I know there was like one guy that she dated for a little bit and that didn't work out. And then I think she met you like maybe sometime after that. And then just immediately you guys were so different than at least that other relationship. And then even, you know, how it was.
You mean our dynamic?
Yes.
Okay.
Because I remember after I didn't meet you that night, that first date.
No.
But how long was it until we actually met?
It was
a few weeks.
It was less than 2 weeks. I want to say it was around 10 days to 2 weeks.
Okay. So what Ben did, Ben was like very like wanting to meet me. And not wanting to be like a mystery man or anything like that, because that's not your vibe.
Yeah.
But he's like, let's go get ice cream. Did we get dinner? I don't think we got dinner. We just got ice cream.
Yeah,
I still remember. Yeah. We went to ice cream. We went to Cold Stone in La Habra, in Big Blue. I think you were wearing like a leather jacket. Like I remember that because it's like a core memory, because it's such a like a big moment. Like, oh my gosh, like me, my dad, or my mom's like, guy. Were you guys made it official pretty quick too? No?
Yeah, no, we did. Because the one thing that I think the one thing that your mother and I both recognized right away was that there were no games in it, and we were both after the same thing. We both wanted to look for a person that would bring to us, what we needed, and we were both looking for a relationship. We weren't looking to be in the dating world. I wasn't looking for her to be one of my girlfriends, and she certainly wasn't looking for me to be one of her Saturday night specials. So yeah, so that was certainly one thing that we recognized right away. And it was just through the ease of that first date, the conversation just came easy. She was fun. We clicked on a lot of levels, and I don't know if you remember this, but it was about 3 nights later that we had our second date, quote unquote, and we met for frozen yogurt, and we wanted to just keep it simple. I got off work, your mother got off work, and we met at a yogurt land or whatever, and we got frozen yogurt, and we just sat and ate frozen yogurt and talked and got to know each other even more. And it was at that point, I think both of us, without saying it, both of us were thinking the same thing. I'm done. This is it. And the good thing about it is that your mother and I were certainly both older. We both had come out of long marriages. I had been single for a few years longer than your mother. But when you get to a certain age, you already have a ton of life experience behind you. So when it comes to dating or looking for someone to spend your time with, you already know what you want. You already know what you don't want, what you're willing to tolerate, what you're not willing to tolerate, and what you're going to accept and what you're not going to accept. So you don't have to go on 20 dates with somebody to be able to figure out, is this person good for you? And that's kind of where we were with that. And that's why it ended up happening so quickly. Don't worry about it. I'm a professional broadcaster and I bump my microphone all the time. I knock it over a time or two. Yeah, so that's where we were with that. But I know from my side of it, I did want to meet you early. And when we met, and I think this is why we have the relationship that we do, you and I, and because it's great, it's healthy, and there's a ton of love and respect here. And I give you so much credit for that, because you made it easy for me. You were easy on me. You weren't like hard on me. You didn't have walls up. You didn't say, oh, who's this guy dating my mom? No, you can't have my mom, blah, blah, blah. You didn't have that mentality. You never said any of that stuff. And you made it very easy. And we kind of meshed.
And our birthdays are a day apart.
They are. We're both Leos. So, yeah, so that was very easy. And it was, it gave me an opportunity, for the audience out there. I have a son and I have a daughter, and I have to kind of set this up because look, very few people out there really know me beyond this show, because most of my friends and family don't watch this and they don't listen to this either. So, but in all transparency, my daughter is also my stepdaughter, but I raised her from the age of 8. And
different daughter.
Yes. and that was difficult for me. I was a lot younger then too, and it was hard for me to do that, and not disparaging her at all. She was a kid, but she made it hard on me. She was hard. She was tough on me. And so it was difficult. And I thought, though Tess was 16 years old at the time, I wasn't going to try to be your father. And we've had this discussion before. Yeah. You have a father, but I could be a dad. Okay. And it was my job to be a positive male role model in your life and to be a positive influence. And it was my job and your mother's job. It was both of us together to show you what a healthy relationship was all about, and what it could be and what it should be, and what love was, what respect for one another was. And so I thought, I've got another chance here to do this. Let me do this and let me get it right. So anyway.
Anyway.
So yeah, I mean, what were some of your, since it wasn't really hard on you, not tough that way. I mean, did you have any, I mean, what kind of concerns did you have when your mother and I started dating and you knew that, okay, this is kind of like, this is it. Yeah, somebody just bumped the camera. It's all right. Don't worry about it.
It looks fun. No, I don't know.
It was no earthquake. Yeah.
He hasn't felt one yet out here in California.
Okay.
So
right. We
be
actually
careful because I don't want it to happen.
We actually have an in-studio guest, or not an in-studio guest. We have an in-studio audience today. So
it's my boyfriend David over there.
Oh gosh, whatever.
Okay. Anyways, yeah, like, I have to think back on what I was feeling at the time.
Yeah,
because
sure.
obviously we're past it now. But I think initially, like, there are certain memories that come up that say or speak a lot about what I was feeling at the time. So I'll share one of those with you.
Yeah.
But in general, also, I think for me, I just wanted to see how things were going to progress because, like I said, like when I asked that question before, oh, you guys like started dating pretty quick. Like, is that correct? And yeah, when I think back on it, I do remember thinking to myself like, like, I wonder what like the pace of this is going to be like, what, are they going to like date for a long time? Like, are they going to like get married? Like, what's their wedding going to look like? I'm just thinking about all those things because in my head, I'm thinking, I'm still thinking about my future because, right, I'm 16 years old. I wasn't sure where I was going to college. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do career-wise or like for my major at the time. So I was thinking about all those things. And then I was just thinking, well, what's it going to look like for like them? Are they going to move away? I don't know. I was just having all these thoughts at the time because I didn't really know what was going to happen. But overall, yeah, like nothing, I wouldn't say anything was ever like when you first started dating, anything was super difficult or, because I was still in my house, you were in your house, so you guys would see each other.
Yeah.
I did appreciate how present you would try to be. Like I remember, you'd show up to my volleyball games and you would show up to just different events that I had going on. So that definitely made a lot to me and it made a really good impression on me. Like, oh, he actually like cares and like about me because there was this one guy, like that one guy I told you about that my mom dated. Like I don't think that lasted for a long time, but he never in the time that they were like together, he never like tried to make an effort to really talk to me or get to know me or come to any of my events. It just seemed very like, dating his, like, my mom. And, I've known friends who grew up with, a stepdad like that. From a young age or a stepmom or like just someone who wasn't their biological parent marrying one of their parents. And now it's like, there's no connection there.
Right.
And I had seen that a lot. I even have a friend who, like one of her parents got married to someone and there's, no, in the past several years and no connection. And, I think it's harder potentially as the child gets older. However, despite me being 16 going on 17 that year, I did feel that you actually cared and wanted to be there. And that definitely made me feel a lot more comfortable and just like receptive. I mean, it took a long time for me to say like I love you back to you.
Yeah.
Like that was one of the things. Like Ben loves really big. He's a huge like hugger. If I leave, he'll always say, I love you. And literally for years, like he'd been telling me it for years and I just would not say it back to him. I finally started saying it back to him maybe like within the past 2 years.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
But you know, like he was always ready, if that makes sense. Like he always had his arms open to me. He was always there, and he was in this space of like, you know, not in a rush. Like, oh, like she'll come around. Like I'm just gonna like be here and do what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And you know, that is the case. Like I did come around. You know, it's not to say like I didn't love you all that time, but I think it's a lot more, I don't want to say difficult, but it is something you think about when you're a child. And it's like, you know, I do still have my dad. So
Yep.
then for a while, you know, that's
Yep.
something you think about. Oh, do I feel weird like saying that to someone who's not my dad?
Sure.
And just trying to navigate that. But ultimately, you know, in the time that we've gotten to know each other better, I've gotten to know your whole family, who is my family
Is now your family.
Like I love all of them. It's like now there's no question about it. Which maybe before, I don't want to say there was a question, but it just takes longer to get around.
It's different. And I think that you had come from being a part of a family that would see each other on like Easter and Christmas. You know, you see them on Easter, and when you're saying goodbyes, all right, we'll see you at Christmas. Where my family, man, we see each other constantly. Whether it's the whole family or a portion of the family, whatever it is, we're always trying to do something together. We're always trying to see each other. And that was the one thing that I wanted to, I knew I could bring it to the table, but I was like chomping at the bit to bring that to you and your mother, because I knew that they would just throw their arms wide open and accept the two of you, you know, as much, if not even more than I. And I know from at least you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I know that it was tough for you at first because you didn't want to open up to a bunch of people, not really knowing them, and your mother and I only being together for a couple of months. I mean, that could change in another 2 weeks or whatever it is. And I know you didn't want to open yourself up and open your heart up to those people, but I also think it was because it was something you weren't used to as well. And so I know it took a little bit for you to warm up, but once you did, you were all in. And they're all in. They were all in from the start. It just, you know, it took you a little bit of time to warm up.
Yeah, and I remember the first time we met them. Like I could tell you because I remember exactly what it was.
Yeah.
So early April is when we met.
Yeah.
Then it's June.
Mm-hmm.
It's 2 months later.
Yep.
He tells us that his family goes camping every year. That's like the tradition.
Yep.
So it's like, okay.
I'm scrolling for a picture. Go ahead.
Like I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, like that's cool. Like I'm thinking to my mom when she's telling me this, like, we're not going camping. Like, like, so I think, I don't remember if you were trying to convince her to go camping. I think she was thinking about it. And then ultimately I'm like, no, we are not staying there overnight. Like, we don't know these people.
Yeah.
Like, we're going out in like the middle of like the campground. Oh my gosh. Okay, wait, hold on.
Go ahead.
So I'm like, you know, like we're not going to be there overnight. Like we'll drive up for the day.
Yeah.
Like, and I was like, we'll do that. So then we went, and it was Brenda's birthday.
Yeah.
And it was like a whole party. I mean, you're going to see the picture in a second.
About 50 or 60 people.
Yeah, show the picture.
Yeah. So this is Tess and I.
Circa 2018.
Yes. June of 2018. And
I love that shirt.
Though we both look really happy, Tess is like, she can barely stand this. So here you go. Wait, there it is. Yeah. Yeah, Tess was having a hard time with that one, especially me. And like you said, I love big, and I've got my arm wrapped around Tess, and we're wearing our sombreros. It's like, no, let's go. Big smile. And Yeah, Tess is kind of like, yeah, okay, whatever.
I was tired at that point in the day too. I'm thinking, oh, like we're almost out of here. Like, oh, we're leaving.
Yeah, yeah, but yeah. So I could understand your, from your side of it where it was coming from, but they love you to pieces, and now they're your family too.
Yeah.
And wow, here's the crazy thing. Trust me, if something were to happen to Catherine and I'm out and they're in all the way. Just know that. Just know that. I've already been told that too. So
Yeah, they give
I get the boot.
yeah.
Good thing nothing's gonna happen. But so when was it that you realized that, okay, no, these two, my mom and Ben, they're in it to win it?
Oh, when did you guys get engaged?
That
What month
was
was that?
that was in April, a year later. It was
Okay.
54 weeks from our first date, and that was on Easter Sunday.
Yep, I remember the details of it.
Yeah.
I just can't remember the day. Okay, so I would say probably leading up to that time because, there were several events. Like, I got to see, my first Italian Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
I got to do the family Christmas.
Yeah.
So I think that, those events and seeing how you interacted with
That's me,
everyone.
yeah.
I don't know. I think that did a lot because I grew closer to your family. I saw my mom growing closer to your family. I saw, I don't know, just all that the family's still growing.
Yeah.
And how there are a lot of, a lot of people in the family who, maybe on their second marriage,
There's a lot of
things
that.
like that.
There's a lot of that.
So
yeah.
it did help me be like, oh,
There's a lot of
I'm not like an outsider.
No, because there's a lot of there's a lot of blended families within the family. Yeah.
So, once I saw that, and got to spend time with everyone a bit more, it just made me feel a lot more comfortable around everyone.
Yeah.
Into the new year, then I don't remember how soon before he proposed, but Ben did ask me, if I would help him in the engagement. What else did we talk about before
Well,
that?
I kind of asked for your permission.
Yeah.
I asked
When was
for your
that?
permission and your blessing. What was that?
When was that? How far in advance?
I think it was about 2 weeks prior.
Yeah, so I'd say in the new year leading up to that moment, I kind of had the feeling that we weren't going anywhere, that we were okay, this is we're going to be at Italian Thanksgiving, we're going to be at family Christmas, we're going to be a family. And I know that for my mom, at least, I was going to be graduating high school that spring. I was supposed to move into the dorm that fall.
Yeah.
It just I could tell that the timing was right, I think is the best way to put it.
Okay.
That you guys were obviously in love and wanted to be with each other. And it just seemed everything was kind of falling into place in that season, that you guys would be able to, start planning the wedding and whatnot. And then we all know what happened with that. COVID.
That was funny. And I am not one for, I'm completely against public proposals. I don't like it because I believe that it puts a lot of pressure on the woman, because you see guys, they're at a football game and on the scoreboard, will you marry me, or a baseball game or basketball, whatever it is, or sometimes a guy will do it at a big family function. And I really am against those because, like I said, it puts a lot of pressure on the woman. And a lot of times, not all the time, people, but a lot of times, a man will do that. He'll make that public proposal because he's feeling like the relationship is on shaky ground. And it puts pressure on that woman. She's not going to say no in front of all these people. And so I'm not a fan of that. And I wasn't a fan of doing it, but we did it at church. And your mother and I, prior to that, we had talked about getting married. She had no idea the proposal was coming, when it was coming, but we had talked about it. And we, this is just, our relationship is too perfect. It's too, I shouldn't say too perfect, but it's too good right now. It is. It was so good that our dynamic between the three of us was great. And so let's not mess around. And not only that, but your mother also said she would never live with me or anyone else unless she was married. And so I was like, well, we got to do this. I'm thinking to myself, and like I said, we had talked about it. So she just had no idea it was coming. So she was surprised by it, but I knew that she was going to say yes. So it made that public proposal kind of like a slam dunk. But I remember asking you for help on that. Tess, can you get your girlfriends to like paint a banner at school? It will say, "Will you marry me?" And I remember that I had to hide it in the back of Big Blue. Yep. We went to church that morning. I had to hide it in the back of Big Blue, and then I asked Pastor Dave to give me a hand with it, and I think it was crazy.
I mean, I don't know if you guys have talked about it, but I feel like she was a little suspect that day. Like she kind of knew something was up because you kept walking out.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I remember you walked out because it was Easter.
Yeah.
And she looked at me at one point. She's like, "Why does he keep walking out?" Like something like that. Like she, Yeah. I'm like, "Oh no!" Like I knew.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember it was after service and right in front, and I screamed out, got everyone's attention. The church had a photographer and a videographer there too, and I wasn't even aware of that. And then I start saying my thing, and then people get their cell phones out and they're all taking video and pictures, and then this banner rolls out. "Will you marry me?" As I'm dropping down on one knee to ask your mother to marry me. And she's kind of surprised by it, and it all worked out, right? Yeah, it all worked out. It was fun. And that was the second time I got to see you cry, Tess. That you got to cry where I was concerned anyway. So
what was the first time I cried?
That was when we did Thanksgiving at the house for your side of the family, for your aunts and uncles and all that. Yeah, I cried. You were crying. I think you started me crying too, because we weren't around the table asking what we were all thankful for. And I really, honestly, 7 months into this great relationship, this great bond that your mother and I had that I never knew that I could have ever again, it gets to my turn. Of course, I saved myself for last. I let everybody go first. And
he's like, "I'm going to bring it home."
That's it, man. You got to bring it back and put a big old giant bow on it. But I remember saying what I was thankful for, and you were a part of it because of who you are, who you were then, and how accepting of me you were. And I remember looking across the table, and I think you were trying to smile, but you had ugly cry face. It was great. And that's when I knew that
I'm a repeat offender of ugly cry face.
But I knew that's when you and I were like good to go. We were good. We were good forever. So, yeah. But, I just wanted to kind of talk about this a little bit because she always teases me.
Because
everybody, somebody, but geez.
There's another one. I'll think about it.
Oh, okay. All right. But I just, there are a lot of these situations that come up in life. other relationships, other instances where blended families don't quite work out. And I don't know. I think I just think that we're a really good example of how you can make that work. And it's mutual love and it's mutual respect. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know if I've mentioned this to you. I've certainly told your mother, but it was after your mother and I were dating for a while, probably 6 months or 8, whatever it was, I can't recall. And she had said to me, we never, ever once talked church, religion, nothing. She could have been an atheist for all I know. And she says to me, she says, hey, you want to go to church sometime? And I never even thought twice about it because I was a Christian going into our relationship. I was a believer and all that. But I had kind of, let's put it this way, I had strayed and was living the life of Charlie Harper from 2.5 Men without the drinking and stuff. So, without thinking, I just said, well, yeah, of course. And then we started going. And that was really, I mean, obviously, I think from the time I swiped right on Bumble, that was when my life turned around. But your mother is so responsible for all of this just because of who she is, how she handles things. She is like grace under pressure. She never lets a moment get too big for her. And she is as cool as the other side of the pillow. And she just is. And good. Me, I'm the one that's excitable. I don't want to say I am kind of hot-tempered, even though I try to temper it. But yeah, this is all because of your mother. It's all because of her. And it's because she brought us together in returning to our faith and getting us back into church. It's all on her. It's all on her. So yeah. Did you come up with your story yet?
What story?
Oh, you said you had another one.
Oh, I can't remember.
Oh, okay. All right.
Oops. I mean, I could probably think of. Okay. Well, this is like unrelated, but this was a crazy story when it happened, and I don't know if you've told the viewers this yet.
I don't know. Just get up on the mic. You don't have to get up. Just move. There you go.
Okay, this one is good. It was Italian Thanksgiving.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember what year it was. You know what I'm gonna say?
I know what I love it, and I haven't shared this one. This is great.
Okay, so yeah, it's Italian Thanksgiving. We have this long table set up in the backyard.
Long communal table.
And okay, so I'm not gonna say what it was, but they had already told me to get my raw reaction, and then I was like, "What?" And then they told me, "Oh, we're just kidding, but like we're gonna prank everyone and say this."
Yeah.
And I was like, so. We were hosting it. It was at our house.
Yeah.
And yeah, Ben's going up to make a speech. If there's one thing about a party that Ben's hosting, or he's not hosting, he's going to make a speech at some point. So anyways, he goes to make this speech and I'm like, okay, here it comes. Like, I know what he's going to say. So it's my mom up at the front, at the head of the table with him. We're all seated and he's standing up, thanking everyone for being there and whatnot. And I don't remember exactly what you said, but I think this is what he said. He's like, Catherine,
how does it go
again? Whatever Ben says, or because get off the truck.
Yeah.
Catherine and I are expecting. And then everyone in the room is like, like looking around like, what? Like, I think someone said, isn't she too old?
Brenda said, isn't she too old? But do you remember Jake and Aaron's reaction?
So his other two children, who, I mean, they have children of their own,
and they were sitting next to each other.
They were like squeezing. Like, I think Jake was squeezing.
Aaron was squeezing the blood out of Jake's arm.
hand, because everyone was like, "What? Like, I beg your finest pardon? What?"
Yeah. Well, what had happened was, I mean, if you remember in the last few years,
it was 2019, because everyone was,
people were having kids left and right, or pregnant, ready to have kids, all that kind of thing. And so I had there
were like 3 pregnant people
at the table. And I just said, hey, in the spirit of everybody, have all everybody these pregnancies and expected mothers and all that, Catherine and I have a bit of news to share. We're expecting. That was when it was like, what? Now, of all my gags as an adult, not the pranks as a kid.
Those were funny. Those are good.
Which ones? What? Oh,
the ones of you and Chuck.
Oh yeah. So that was probably one of the best as an adult. Yeah, that was a good joke. We got him. Your mother and I got him.
Yeah, good. They got everyone good.
So, but yeah.
Okay, wait.
Yeah.
You have. Okay, at some point you need to tell them about your stories, like pranking people.
I don't know.
In the car.
You got to ask.
Well, can you please share a couple stories about how you pranked people in the car, where you would do something and wait for a car to drive by and react?
Oh,
and
is that what you want to know? Them? Well,
Well, I want you to tell the viewers, because I'm thinking of 2 things.
Okay, well, I'll tell you this. All right. This is why what I'm going to say here is it's pretty innocent, but it's very mischievous. But this is why I can't get some of my friends on the program, because they're afraid to talk. And they're I don't know. I guess they think that there's some statute of limitations that hasn't run out. And when we were kids, we did a lot of mischievous things. We just, and when I say mischievous, it was mischievous. We didn't go break into people's homes. We weren't knocking over old ladies for their Social Security checks or anything like that. And yes, when you're my age, you understand the when I say knocking over old ladies for their Social Security checks, because they actually got a check in the mail, and those old ladies would go to the bank and cash it. Now it's just all electronic, but we didn't do any of that kind of stuff. Okay. It was just, doorbell ditch, things of that nature. And there were a couple of other type of things. I know there was a few times we would get some old clothes, and we would get safety pins, and we pin the shirt to the pants, and we would get newspaper, and we would stuff it and make a dummy, and go to Goodwill and get like the styrofoam head and put it on. And we did this a couple of times, and man, God, this is bad. We usually did it right in front of you on the spot, but no, it's all right. It's all right. We did this like in front of John Fuller's house, and like a car would come by, and we'd be behind the cars. And as soon as they got close enough, we throw the dummy out, and then they would hit the dummy. And of course it explodes all over the place. And then people slam on their brakes and, get crazy. Then of course we would run and giggling and that kind of stuff.
I didn't do any stuff like that. So when you told me that, I thought it was the best thing ever.
Well, that's because you weren't creative and ingenious like we were. Okay, you got to remember this. Okay, this is the 70s. Okay, this is like 76, 77. Okay, you weren't even an itch in your daddy's pants at that point. Okay, and so we didn't have all these other distractions. We would go outside and play. We would hang out in someone's front yard, backyard, at the wall at the end of the alley, or whatever it was. And we did stuff like, okay, we would get $1, maybe $2, which is a lot of money. And we would go up to Goodwill, and we'd go buy an old beat up purse.
Oh, I love this one.
And and we would take fishing string and we would tie it to the purse and then we would throw it out in the street. And then when cars would come by, they would see the purse and they would stop. Sometimes right in the middle of the street, sometimes they pull over. And they would stop and when the driver would bend over to pick up the purse, we would pull the string. We'd hide behind the bushes and we'd pull the string and they would pop up. Oh my gosh, get spooked or whatever. And most of the time, look, when you're getting beat by a bunch of 11 and 12-year-olds, you get pissed. And so most of the time they would just, oh, you stupid kid, call us names or whatever, get back in the car and drive off. But there was one time we were up a block or so from the house and it was on a Saturday night and it's late, it's dark. And we're at the intersection. No one's going to know, but we're at the intersection of Hadley and C Drive.
I know that. I'm just kidding.
And we were in front of Hadley Lanes, which was a neighborhood bowling alley, 10 lanes. This property here, our property is twice as wide as the property of Hadley Lanes. Okay. That's how small this was. But it was our neighborhood bowling alley. It was our hangout. Well, so we're across the street and this house on the corner had these big juniper bushes, perfect cover. And we throw the purse right out in the middle of the intersection and we're hiding behind the bushes and we're waiting. And if anybody knows a UPS truck, the step vans, they have a certain sound that they make. They make this roaring sound coming down. And so here comes it was not a UPS truck, but it was a USPS truck. So it's for the postal service, but it was a step van, same type of vehicle. Guys coming down. And on our street, the speed limit was like 30 miles an hour. And he's coming down. You can hear him roaring, that rumbling down the street. And then all of a sudden, the guy locks up his brakes. And in the middle of the intersection, if you guys that ride your bicycles, does a power slide. The van goes sideways in the middle of the intersection. This is like 8, 9 o'clock at night. It's pitch dark out. So he's doing a power slide. You hear the tires squealing on the asphalt. And then he comes to a stop and you hear this big old, yeehaw! And the guy jumps out of the step van and he runs over to the purse. And as soon as he bends down, we pull the string and the guy jumps up and he goes, oh my God, you guys got me so good. That's such a great joke. He was so happy about it that we punked him. And he was like, that is the best. He was so good about it. He could have beat the tar out of us. I think it was Chuck and John Fuller and me. And that was the best. But see, it's this kind of stuff that these guys don't want to come on the show and talk about. Are you kidding me? Come on, what harm do we do?
I know you're naming off this John Fuller guy. Like everyone's gonna be like,
yeah, I know. He actually lives close
first and last name.
This isn't. I don't change the names to protect the guilty. Okay. But it's just some of the silly stuff that we did and the reasons why these guys won't come on the program. Spaz does, but the rest of them are afraid, I guess. I don't know. I guess maybe because they were firefighters or police officers. They're retired now, but whatever. So I don't know. But what do you want to know? What else you want to know, I guess? besides the silly pranks that I would play as a kid, and that's just 2 of them. Oh my gosh, that isn't even gosh, I can't believe I'm going to say this. Bombing cars with oranges.
Oh yeah, you did tell me that one.
I think back and I was like, wait a minute.
Let's make orange juice, boys.
If I'm driving down the road and I got pelted with about 4 or 5 oranges, I'm pulling over and I'm beating me some kids. I am tanning some butts. I don't care. They can call their parents, they can call whatever. I'm tanning some butts because I don't want any dents in my vehicle.
Yeah.
And but we used to go down in our neighborhood. We had an alley that was between the two streets. Went right down the center of the block, and so we would go out the back of our house and we'd walk down the alley to the end. The street was Broadway, and the Davises lived there. And the Davises had like 6, 7 citrus trees on their property and all in the front, and they were always full of fruit. So we'd go and pick oranges off the tree, and we stood right at the edge of the alley. And when cars came by, boom, 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 boom. Yeah, bad stuff. Bad stuff. I guess that was kind of breaking the law a little bit. But,
yeah, that one.
But,
if there's property damage.
We didn't hurt anybody. Thank God. We didn't make anybody crash. We didn't cause any accidents. Nothing like that. But it's all good. Yeah. So
those are good. I do love hearing those because I don't know. It just seems so different. I just can't imagine kids today. Like, I can't imagine just going out and seeing kids throwing oranges at a car. I'm like, wow, like the 70s were like wild. Like when I hear that story, the first one, I could see that happening today for sure.
Oh yeah. Well, and we did stuff like toilet paper someone's house.
Oh my god.
But the fun one that we used to do a lot, is we would we did it, I don't know, maybe a couple of times. We would get newspaper and we would rip it up we'd make confetti. We would tear it up into little pieces and we'd put it in a grocery bag. And then we would go up to someone's yard that had, like, they were growing new grass, because there was no such thing as sod in the 70s, okay? There was no sod. You seeded your lawn. And so this fresh grass is growing up. We would go sprinkle our newspaper shreds, our confetti. We would sprinkle it on their new lawn that hadn't, it was just sprouting. So what are you going to do with all this newspaper that's covering your freshly sprouting grass? It's still mostly dirt. We do silly things like that.
Yeah, you were a menace.
But that was more like we were a menace to the neighborhood. Okay. Or maybe even a menace to society. I don't know. But they're just silly things like that. Yeah.
They are funny stories, though.
They're great stories. They're great stories because they always had a funny ending. Good stuff. That's all. I don't know. So.
My gosh, with the teepee thing, there was all this drama in high school. You were around for
I was
that.
there. Yeah,
you were there.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was all this drama. Long story short, some of my friends and we teepeed someone else's house. We did something similar to the newspaper. I think it was rice, if I'm not mistaken. So that was like really bad. But yeah, that happened. We got caught. It was a huge deal.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that. But then, like a week or so later, one of my friends, his house got teepeed, and I didn't know this. He's calling me up that morning, all mad at me, like, Tess, why would you do that? I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, I know it was you. I know it was you guys who teepeed my house.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? Like, we got in so much trouble. Like, you think I'm going to be out teepeeing again another week in a row? Like, that was my first and last time teepeing a house.
The word got around and they all thought you were serial TPers.
Apparently so, because he was so upset. Like, he was borderline crying through the phone, like, telling me, like,
what?
It was, I don't know if I told you that, but yeah, it was one of my close friends, Ryan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come on.
And I was like, okay, but it was pretty funny.
Well, he was probably crying because his parents would make him clean it up. See, when Jake was in high school, we would get TP'd also. And I'd wake up and I'd on a Saturday morning or Sunday morning, and I'd TP all in the trees and everywhere else around the mailbox, whatever. And I'd go up into Jake's room and I'd just kick his bed or whatever. I said, get up. You got to go clean up now. Your friend's made a mess. Let's go. And he'd have to go out there and clean it all up.
You see, like you were just chill about it though. People like
because I wasn't cleaning it up. It's not my mess.
People are like freaking out about the teepee these days.
Yeah. And it's not like in short supply anymore like it was a few years ago. So I mean, if this was a few years ago, I would have been really mad.
Like, that's an expensive job.
I waited in line for 2 days for that. But just, besides all the gags and the pranks and the stuff that we did, look, steering this back really, Tess, to you and to me and your mother, I have to say this. I guess I don't know. I want to say this because whatever audience is out there, I want them to really know what kind of a young lady you really are. You're truly remarkable. You're absolutely incredible. And we're so very proud of you for the things that you've accomplished in your, 22 years of life right now. And you've accomplished so much, really in the last, nearly 5 years, with obviously, graduating from a 4-year university, graduating in 3.5 years, taking on the job that you have now. It's a great, you've got a great thing going on. We're just really proud of your accomplishments. You've really done so much. Probably the worst decision that you've made right now is sitting over here in the studio. No, but no, I just, you really are. You're a remarkable young lady. You have a good head on your shoulders. You make good decisions. It's not always the right one, but you make good decisions. But the cool thing is that you will come to your mother and I when you are, perplexed with having to make a decision on something, and you'll get our advice. You won't just make decisions willy-nilly, without putting some thought into them. The one thing that you and I are very much alike, it's so funny because we're so similar. We can be quite dramatic at times.
Yeah.
We love to hear the sound of our own voice. Well, no, and it's truth. I'm being truthful. I don't like the sound of my own voice. I just like to hear myself talk. I wish it sounded better, but we're rational thinkers, and we try to break things down and put it back together to form a decision or an opinion of something. So we're very similar in that way. It's really neat. And but what I like is that you lean on your mother and I. You lean on her more, rightfully so, but it really hits me right here when you come to me, and which it just shows me that, and it proves to me that I guess I'm a pretty okay guy. And
yeah, I have a good support system. You guys.
You do. You have a tremendous support system, and you have a lot of people that love you. We're one of them. I think that we're probably your biggest fans. And yeah. So I don't want to get all mushy, I don't want to see you cry. You'll probably come out with like that ugly cry. And no one needs to see that.
No one needs to see that.
But yeah, I just appreciate you doing this, coming in studio, having some fun with me, and just spending some time with my audience, so they kind of get to know Tess a little bit. and they know your mom a little bit. Your mom hated that episode. She hated coming to this. I dragged her in here kicking and screaming. She hated it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it.
She's just the, graphic design team and the production crew and the social media manager.
She definitely is a social media team. She definitely is the creative design crew as well. Everyone knows she created that right there. But
she hand did this.
She did. And we're talking, for those that are listening and listening at home or in your car, we're talking about the show logo, the artwork for the show. Yeah. Catherine created that by herself, by hand. But not, she thinks she's the producer. She's not the producer of this show. She thinks so. She tries to run it, but I tell her it stops right there at the studio entrance. So, but I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you doing this. I appreciate you putting up with me for the last hour and 6 minutes. It's been fun. And, yeah, well, I'm hoping that we'll do this again sometime in another form or whatever. But yeah, it'd be great. And I guess with that, we're just we're going to wrap it and remind you all that this podcast is available on multiple podcast platforms like Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Leave Me Alone, and Spotify. Or just search the Ben Maynard Program and choose your option. You'll have multiple options.
They also have an
to choose
Instagram.
From. And let me do my thing here. If you're watching this on YouTube, then please subscribe to the channel. Give me a thumbs up and leave a comment. And I try to get a guest in here that's going to inspire people to leave multiple comments. I get like 1, 2, 3, something like that. So who knows?
Maybe the people would feel more inspired if it's like that cut him off there. But what if we added my silhouette over here?
I can't believe. Look, I'm trying to close the show here, right? And Tess is trying to take it over. She wants it to be the Ben and Tess program. Really? Okay. And last but not least, follow me on Instagram, simply Ben Maynard Program. With that, we're done. We're out. Thanks for being here. This is the Ben Maynard Program. Tell a friend.